my name is Chris Day. I'm your host today, co-founder of the Global Cannabis Network Collective, along with Jillian Reddish. We're both going to be tracking the Q&A in the chat section, and we're going to present two great folks to talk about marketing and AI and branding. The name of the webinar is Beyond the Logo, Real Branding, Real Revenue in Cannabis. And it's my true pleasure to be able to introduce Amna Shamim from CannabisEvents.global and John Shute, CEO of PufCreativ. These two folks I consider professional colleagues and friends, and I've spent decades in the marketing and branding space, both in cannabis and outside. And it's not actually very often where after you've spent that much time, you get to see things through a new lens coming from a new direction. But today you're going to get to. I had a chance to get a sneak peek of the presentation last night. And it's pretty neat to see all these brave souls jumping on this webinar to hear about how to drive their brands forward. So I'm going to pass it over to the people that you actually came here to listen to. John and Amna, thanks so much for joining us, and take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having us, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay and see my presentation. Yeah,
Yes, sir. You're on
cool.
screen and audible.
Great. Sweet. So I'll jump in. I'll introduce myself. I'll let Amna introduce herself too. But as Chris said, I'm John Shute. I'm the CEO over at PufCreativ. Looks like I know most of the people on here, so sorry if this is repetitive. I've worked with hundreds of cannabis companies since we started in 2017. Our agency has contributed to almost $12.5 million raised for different nonprofits and associations and organizations all over the world at this point. And I feel like I have the best team in the world to work with that I'm really, really proud of. And we've won some of the most recognizable cannabis branding and marketing awards you can win, which I'm really proud and grateful for. And I'm really excited to present a lot of what I've learned over the years on how to really lean into revenue-driven marketing strategies. And I will pass the mic to my partner in crime.
All right, thanks, John. I do have to say, having collaborated with PufCreativ, they are some of the best people in the industry. So when he says his team is amazing, he is not joking. I'm Amna, and I'm horrible at intros, so I'm delighted that most of you guys already know me. I am the founder of CannabisEvents.global, which is the largest and most comprehensive resource of cannabis events around the world, for the name. I also run content at the Cannabis Community, which is the largest and most engaged consumer community in North America. So I have a lot of insights from working with all sorts of different companies in the cannabis space, all up and down the supply chain, all over the world. I've actually been traveling around the world since 2014 and in the industry since 2016. So when I say something works somewhere, it's because I've seen it on the ground. And I apologize a little bit. I have a little bit of a sore throat, so you may see me sneaking some lozenges along the way. I've worked, like I said, all over the world. And one of the things that I've seen that is the most impactful is strong communication between a brand and their audience. And that's not a one-way street. That isn't just you shouting to the universe. It's a dialogue. And what we're going to talk about today is making sure that your messaging lands and it's effective in a way that helps your business grow.
Is your sore throat from smoking too many blunts?
Unfortunately, no. It's from the pollution in Malta, which is where I am right now.
Oh no.
I know.
I
I'm
don't
so
like I
sorry.
don't like I don't like pollution. Um Okay, I will kick things off here. Thank you, Amna, for the introduction. I will set the stage a little bit further to kind of lead us into the points that we're really trying to get across throughout this presentation. So as we kind of go through this, I would like everyone to kind of have the perspective of what really moves the needle from a high level for any type of cannabis company anywhere, really any type of business, right? And what we see is that when someone has a very strong, thought out brand and creative aspect to their brand, and then someone is investing dollars into performance marketing, so an ROI, what does that look like? What we see through the data is that strong creative, strong branding, strong messaging lead to maximum return on your investment when you're investing into marketing initiatives, right? And the bridge between that gap is usually a website. The website is a reflection of the creative. It's where you host a lot of your messaging. It's where you collect emails. It's where you may do transactions. And that bridges to the performance, which is usually something like SEO, direct advertising, customer retention through email marketing, PR, social media. And so when you bring all of those pieces together, it's when you're maximizing your spend when you get to day-to-day operations. But like I said, it all starts with your branding and the brand that you're creating. And a keyword that I see get thrown around all the time is authenticity. And everyone says, yeah, I built an authentic brand. And, here's, our logo looks great, our colors look great. But when I think of authenticity, I think beyond the logo, beyond the colors, I think about how are you actually showing up for your customer, your consumer of your product, the person who's paying you for your services. How are you showing up for your team that is making the product, providing the services? How are you showing up for the community that you are ingrained in? You're launching your products in, you're launching your services, you're opening up that brick and mortar location. And so we find when we actually pull the story, the reason why someone got into the cannabis industry, and that's really my favorite part about this industry, is that every single human being is in this industry or consumes cannabis or has some type of, grasp on alternative wellness. Everyone has their own unique story. And that's what I find being the most beautiful thing about this industry, and really why I'm in it, and what motivates me day to day is learning about everyone's unique cannabis story. And when you're able to pull that story and that authenticity and that passion out of someone as you're creating their brand, and have the messaging, the target demographic, the logo, the colors, the system of the packaging follows suit to that authenticity, that story, that passion, that reason why you got into alternative wellness, that's when you truly are building an authentic brand, which essentially down the line is going to help you convert way better from a revenue perspective when you're investing tons of money into marketing. So, this slide here, pretty straightforward. Authenticity doesn't necessarily mean aesthetic. Authentic isn't a look, it's how you show up when things get hard. Most brands say it, and few actually build it properly. And so most of the revenue that my agency makes is actually building brands this way, but also a majority of it is actually fixing the mistakes and reestablishing that foundation for a lot of companies that are already existing and already in a lot of markets. And so, that being said, over the years, my perspective and approach to branding and marketing has changed. It's evolved. It's adapted to the times. It's adapted to technology. It's adapted to AI, which is something that we'll get into. And so, over the past couple of years, I've come up with this framework called the Brave framework. It's being brave. It's being realistic. It's being agile. It's being valuable, and it's being efficient. And essentially, if you structure your brand and your perspective on your marketing from the beginning using this framework, you're going to maximize your investment and your time being spent in marketing in the future. So I'm going to get into that, what brave actually really means, get into a few other things, and then pass the mic over to Amna. But first, the B, the brave. Another word for being brave, in my opinion, is being disruptive. Like I mentioned, everyone has their own unique story of why they got in this industry, and I encourage folks to lean into that. The more you lean into it, the easier it's going to be to develop bold design for your brand. It's going to be easier to tell your story. It's going to be easier to understand how your brand is going to infuse itself into the communities that you're impacting along that journey before you even launch, all the way to, again, the day-to-day grind of running any type of cannabis company in this wild industry we all got into. And so have that bold design, have that bold story, have the reasoning behind the reason you got into this to fuel that. And then don't be afraid to be brave, be disruptive, and show people why. Because essentially, when you're building a brand and creating something, you want your end user, your target demographic, your consumer to feel something. And when they feel something, that's when you're actually going to be effective and actually going to be able to move the needle when you get into the nitty-gritty of running a cannabis company. It's not just about being brave, it's about being realistic. In this industry, if you're not in it for the long game, you might as well not get into the industry. And I really mean that. You have to really be prepared to grind and hustle to make it happen. And that goes for any vertical, any industry. Even if you were maybe first to market in a state and you're making a ton of money, it's not going to last. People are going to pop up, and you got to be ready for that. So a lot of this comes during the branding process. Like a lot of times, we'll help folks like build their investor decks and make their pro formas look pretty in the investor deck, and have finances involved. And a lot of times, what we see is that people are not budgeting properly for what moves the needle for their specific type of business, right? So, for example, if you're a brick and mortar location, let's call it a dispensary or a pharmacy, one of the biggest drivers of traffic is going to be organic SEO, search engine optimization, right? That's going to be what we see on average between 50 to sometimes even 80 or 85% of your website traffic is going to be coming from organic as a brick and mortar location. Excuse me, too many blunts. When you acquire customers through something like SEO as a brick and mortar location, what's the point if you're not retaining them properly? So if I was a retailer or a brick and mortar pharmacy, I would be investing into my organic traffic to my site and retaining all those customers that I'm paying to acquire. And so that's something that, no brainer, you should be budgeting a lot of your marketing budget for post launch. And that kind of changes, right? If you're a service provider, ancillary company, maybe you take a little bit different of an approach. Maybe SEO and retention are important to the marketing plan, but maybe direct sales or outbound reach or direct advertising is going to move the needle for your ancillary company. Or maybe you're a brand and you really need to make a splash in PR or on social media. And so working with a company or a consultant or someone who's had this experience of launching a different type of business in this industry to help you budget properly is, I recommend it more than anything, because misbudgeting is the reason that most companies fail in this industry. One other thing that I want to get across is we'll see people budget for their ego. It's not necessarily what's actually going to move the needle. It's because they wanted to see their brand in Forbes, or they wanted to, have that really cool reel on Instagram out there, or spend, 80% of their marketing budget on social media when it's really not actually going to move the needle for them and their business model. And so when I mention actually budget for what moves the needle, there are things that we're going to get into that you can actually track your revenue and your margins and control those and make informed decisions based off that data you're collecting. The A in Brave, agile, it really piggybacks off being realistic, because the reality of your situation of a cannabis entrepreneur or just being in the cannabis industry in general are the rules are going to change. You're going to hit roadblocks and things are going to go wrong. I'd probably say to everyone on this webinar has probably experienced something like that. So when we're actually building our brand, we're building the budgets, we're launching go-to-market strategies, we're executing day to day. You really need to build systems that are going to adapt to the changes in regulation or the rules with advertising. And when I say that, from a digital perspective, you have the ability with modern technology in cannabis and in the world to own your own data and actually have pure visibility into what channels are performing for your company. And that goes for anyone. The other side of that is owning your list, right? And by that, I mean an email list. Because again, what's the point of investing, $30,000 into your Instagram account over the next year if it's at risk of just getting shut down? Of course, there are strategies to avoid getting shut down or shadow banned, but at the end of the day, you don't have control over what these third-party companies are going to do. But what you do have control over is collecting those emails from your consumers or your following on those platforms and letting that be the main place that hosts your hub or your list or your data. And again, just piggybacking off being realistic, you need to budget for the curveballs that are going to happen. That your budget is what's going to allow you to be agile in these situations that are inevitable, that come up. We see a lot of issues with packaging. Different states have different rules. Different countries have different rules. So when you're investing into packaging design and your packaging system, or just acquiring your actual hard packaging, your physical packaging, you need to think about the different states, your long-term goals. Where are you trying to go? What are those rules? How can we develop a system that's going to be able to adapt to different states and different regulations? Because I've seen a lot of money wasted on packaging over the years, and that's just one example. There's many other mistakes to be made and many other roadblocks that can come up for any business. The V in Brave, this is probably one of the most important points to get across, is being valuable. And I would say another word for valuable is trust. And what we see is that trust is the real currency when it comes to branding, marketing, and just owning a cannabis business. Like I mentioned before, if you're investing money and time into brand recognition, acquiring new customers, what's the point if they don't come back, right? If they just go to the store, they saw your Instagram ad, or you popped up on Google for best Blue Dream vape near me, and someone came in, they bought that Blue Dream vape, and you never see them again. What's the point? You spent all that money on acquisition, but you didn't have the trust or retention effort in place to actually get them to come back for more, to turn them into a life cycle customer. So there's a few ways to build trust for any cannabis business. A lot of times for, I would say, physical locations like a retail location or like a cannabis brand that you're consuming, I think safety is a really important factor, right? Like if you're actually consuming a product and you can show your target demographic or the customers that are consuming your product that your product is safe. You grew your cannabis organically, and these are the nutrients that you use, and these are your lab tests, or hey, this is the vape technology that we chose because there's combustion that takes place in vapes, and what happens to the oil after it combusts with a metal coil, right? It's something that you don't see everyone really necessarily talking about. So making folks feel safe when they come in your dispensary or buy your product, or even when they're trusting you with providing them with a service like marketing, for example, that's going to have them it's going to allow you to create actual customer life cycle. So safe, consistent customer experiences are just the start. A big part of of building that trust even comes down to communication. And so one thing that we're really leaning into at PufCreativ is segmenting audiences, right? So we'll use a cannabis retail location, for example. And so you have customers that really love to buy flower. You have customers that really love edibles. They love those one-to-one gummies that don't really get them high, but take maybe the arthritis out of their hands. Or you have those customers that love vapes. You know, I'm a parent. I love vapes. It's a little bit less aggressive. You know, doesn't smell as bad. So you know, it's like my consumption method of choice. And so when you build trust through communication, we build it through segmentation. So we speak to each type of preferred category or location or demographic and cater the communication to each one of those segmentations. Because if you're going to if you're going to push that edible special onto the flower user, they're not going to trust you anymore. They're going to unsubscribe for your newsletter and just be like, oh, these guys are just spamming me with stuff I don't care about. And so the trust even comes down to communication. A point that Amna got across earlier, communication is just so critical for customer retention and trust, and even with your own team in this industry, because again, there's so many roadblocks and stressors that just pop up out of nowhere. And again, trust is going to bring repeat traffic, and that is the name of the game. There's no point in getting someone to come for one. You need them to come for years, and that's the perspective that you know I take when I'm approaching a customer's marketing.
I just want to jump, wait, before you go, the next slide, I just want to jump in here. I know the examples that John is using tend to be B2C, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're B2B or B2C, the decision maker is a human and they want to feel
Yep.
seen. So that is part of the trust. And that's why segmentation and all these things matter, is because for them to believe you can solve their problem, they need to know that you understand it. And that's
Yep.
what all of these pieces give you.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You know, a lot of, I would say, my examples and some of the verbiage in this presentation really are centralized around retail and brands. But to on this point, this really applies to any type of business, B2B, B2C, D2C, any country. It could be non-cannabis business as well. This is kind of the perspective that you should be taking. And you know, we'll keep getting into it a little bit more. I tend to babble on, so I'm trying to get through as quickly as I can. My
Doing
ADHD really
great.
take my ADHD takes me places, but here we are. E, the last letter in Brave, efficient, efficiency. Be strategic, not sporadic. Make sure that every single decision that you're making is backed by data. And that can start in the branding process before you even created your company. You can use data to fuel, to refine your messaging, who your target demographics are, what your product formulations are going to be, which SKUs you're going to launch with before you launch with 50, right? Start with a few so you can learn and do the market research and see what the data says. Or again, if you set up your foundation properly and you're tracking, you know, your baseline of your website through email marketing or SEO or advertising, make sure that when you would increase that marketing spend, that increase in that spend was because you analyze the pattern in the data that's showing you that you have your highest margin because you implemented that particular special or you implemented that specific marketing strategy that actually is working. Because we just see so much money wasted and decisions made because they're sporadic. They think they have to do this because the other guy's doing it. But in reality, you don't have to do it just because someone else is. You can be smart and be disruptive and make your own decisions based off who your customer demographic is and what data you have and collected. And there is data banks out there in each state that you can kind of purchase, and there's some free ones out there too that we use that are really, really cool. And that just kind of piggybacks into the next bullet point here of just don't guess, measure. Like why guess? It's just again, your time and your money are so valuable in the cannabis industry. If you can actually measure it, that's where you're going to have to lean into your ROI and actually be effective and be efficient. And the last point here, with efficiency and being strategic is actually creating KPIs and goals. What we do when we work with someone is we create a roadmap, and that roadmap outlines not only like, the services that someone paid for, but the deliverables, the strategy that we're going to execute month to month over the next year and next 2 years. And within that roadmap, there's specific KPIs and goals that we plan to reach. And when you reach those goals and KPIs, let's make them as realistic as we possibly can. You could actually, okay, we made this much revenue, or we got this many email subscribers on our list. Let's increase our spend now. And so when you have these little nuggets of goals or KPIs throughout your roadmap of your strategy, that's when you can actually be super effective and realistic and plan out your finances and your budget and have true visibility into your marketing. Because without visibility, you don't really have anything. It's like, what are you really basing your decisions off of? When I first set the stage for the presentation, I mentioned the creative side of a creative and authentic side of a brand, and the performance side of a brand. And what bridges those gaps, like I mentioned before, is a website. Again, I mentioned retailers and brands here. Retailers, this is your digital storefront. Brands, this is your conversion funnel. But this applies to any type of business. If you're an ancillary company, a consultant, that's where someone's going to sign up for your email or reach out to that number on your site. That's where the conversion is. And so that creative, that authenticity, if that's reflected in a website that's built for SEO, it's built for conversion, it's built with a great UX that gets your story out, but also it makes it really easy for someone to add to cart or call that number or email that email. That's when you're going to see conversion rates, click-through rates, and actually key events with revenue and ROI being tracked in your Google Analytics for your Search Console or other data analytical tools. So I really recommend putting time into the website and setting up these different conversion funnels, because again, that's where all the visibility is going to be. It's through that conversion on the website. Oh God. Sorry, guys.
Hey, this is a great opportunity for me to jump in and remind you guys we're at about halfway. So it's a great time check. And thanks, John, for the new acronym with Brave. I love it.
Yep, no problem. Hopefully this next slide. Okay. Woo. Okay, we're back.
Success.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to pass the mic here soon. So thanks, Chris, for the check-in. So, a lot of what we spoke about is kind of leading up to the launch, but the launch is really where the grind comes in. And I'm going to bring back up that roadmap again. On these roadmaps that we create, sometimes we have anywhere from 10 to 40 bullet points of deliverables that we're working on month to month, right? And what we're seeing with search engines and with AI, especially, just going to get an AI here in a second. I know everyone's excited for that. Is that you need all of these pieces of the puzzle to come together. So regardless of your business, SEO for visibility on search engines where most of the people are primed to purchase. Again, someone on Google or Bing or Yahoo searching for something, they're looking to accomplish something. They're looking to purchase or find something to solve a problem for those. So regardless of your business, SEO for visibility, search engine optimization, ranking high puts your brand in front of the people who are ready to act. Direct acquisition of customers, paid targeted acquisition, is going to be PPC, pay-per-click advertising, meta advertising, TikTok advertising, programmatic advertising. And when you do advertising, again, make sure that you're being realistic with your budget and you're initially investing into channels that make sense when you're not working with any data. For a lot of folks, we usually start them on Google because people on Google are primed to purchase. So Google is going to allow you the quickest path to ROI with an ad and also provide you with the best data. You can take that data and then apply it to platforms like Facebook, TikTok, or other like Reddit and things like that, but based on informed data, informed budget, and informed ROI. Again, once we acquire folks, we need to retain them. So content and email for retention, strong content and direct messaging and keep your audience engaged and loyal. And so again, that goes for any type of business. If you're an agency like myself, it's educational blogs, it's thought leadership, it's speaking on webinars, it's sharing that information in your email marketing with your list who trust you because you're speaking to them properly. And then the last thing, community engagement needs to just be infused into your company, no matter what it is. Your community is what fuels your business. You have an impact on the communities around you. Just the fact that we're all in the cannabis industry, and here in the States, we have prisoners locked up for cannabis still, and throughout the world, there's been communities impacted by the illegalization of cannabis and the criminalization of cannabis and the stigma that comes along with it. So as cannabis companies and entrepreneurs in this industry are making money off of cannabis, it's something that you should really consider and think about and just ingrain into your business model, because that's what's really gonna move the needle of connecting with your target demographic.
And that's something that we have in the cannabis industry that a lot of other industries don't have. We have really passionate, engaged consumers who want to love your brand. They just want a reason to trust you, to be loyal. Like it's a very special place to be right now, both timing and industry wise, no matter where you are in the world. Even even and maybe especially in places where it's markets are just starting to come online. They're coming online because people are advocating, they're pushing for it. So if you build your brand in a way where it feels like a community, that is incredibly powerful for you and will really help you grow.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by emerging markets, whether it's a new country or a new state or a new province, because I love having the ability to put these pieces of the puzzle together the right way. Because watching that long-term effectiveness of a strong foundation and that strong communication is just so cool to see clients so
Yeah.
happy with the results. Um,
And,
I'm oh, go ahead, Anna. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I just want to say, and it's not, we're talking about it geographically, but we also are having different market segments come online, like beverages are becoming big. Edibles were new a few years ago, and this will keep happening. So if it's relevant to your brand to be exploring these new categories, keep that in mind too.
Yep. I'm not gonna we'll give everyone access to this presentation after, and would love to, connect with everyone. I could spend probably 2 hours on this slide, so I'm just gonna move on. But this basically breaks down the difference between retailers and brands and what their goals, strategy, path of least resistance should be to consider as they kind of go into it. But again, we'll give everyone access. I can get really too in the weeds. I want to get to this next slide here, which is AI, which is going to lead a little bit more into what Amna's going to be getting into with the folks for the rest of the presentation. Um, AI is already judging your company, no matter which AI source you're using, whether it's Google or ChatGPT or the other ones out there. Uh, they are not only considering your website and SEO and your brand, that's just the beginning. Without those three things in place, that foundation that we talked about, AI isn't going to put you on that recommended list of solutions for your target demographic at all. You're not even going to make the list of maybe the 5 or 6 recommendations they're going to make. What gets you on that list is that strong foundation. What gets you to the top of that list is everything else that you're doing going on. It's your brand voice, it's your messaging, it's how you're getting that messaging out there online. It's social signals. It's people mentioning you on LinkedIn. It's people talking about your company on Reddit. It's getting tagged on Instagram and getting links back to your site. It's being active in the community. It's having that press about the difference that you're making and the problems you're solving. It's the events that you're throwing and the impact those events are having on the community and your target demographic, and people talking about how, man, that event really changed my life, or that event really had a great impact on our community, or I learned that lesson about that brand that's keeping my health safe, like me healthy and safe. And the other thing too, especially for physical locations, is the maps and the search engine placements between Google Business Profiles, Apple Maps, Bing for Business. Having all of these pieces of the puzzle in place are what really is going to get you to the top of the AI recommendations and what we're going to start seeing in the future of search, which AI, again, it's just a piece of the puzzle when it comes to people searching for your company. And with that,
No, no,
I'm
no,
going to
go
lead
back. I
in.
just wanted to
Oh,
make a
sorry,
point about
sorry.
that
Go
slide.
ahead. Yep.
I'm going to point out that social signals and mentions and events, community impact, these are things that are somewhat out of your hands. This is why your brand is so important. This is why your community engagement is so important. Because right now, AI visibility is more or less enterprise level SEO done well. But that's going to change as all
Yep.
the engines get smarter and get more information. And I firmly believe that everything on this slide is going to become more and more powerful and important. And you're going to be able to less and less hack it the way you used to be able to hack like SEO with Black Hat. So
Yep.
by building it now, you're building for the future. You're getting in there early days, but you have to do it right.
Yep, and just to right to hit home with that is, again, you have to be searchable, and your site has to be convertible, and you have to have visibility into your data to really make
Mhm.
these juicy efforts come to fruition. And
Yeah.
one example is, what we're doing with PufCreativ is really pissing me off. Like, few of my competitors outrank us on Google search, for a lot of our core funnel revenue searches, but AI recommendation for those searches puts us above them. And that's because we're getting mentioned on social. I'm out there in the wild speaking at events. We're doing nonprofit givebacks monthly at this point and getting involved in all of these different community events that are relevant to our audience. And it's really resonating with people. So that's something that we've incorporated into our strategy, and it's really, really working well. And it's truly coming from an authentic place. I got in this industry because I
Mhm.
wanted to change the world and make it better. And I think everyone else here did too. So again, lean into that.
None of us are here for the money. We all have our own stories, and that's really powerful to share. Um, let's dig into the AI. But first, I'm going to bore you with data. It is so important. And a lot of times we do things with our gut. We're like, well, this is what we feel. I know this because this is why I got into it. And that's true to a certain point. But if you're doing it right, your brand is more than you. You are not going to be your customer. You are not going to, your gut cannot be your guide. What you have to do is dig into the market research. John mentioned all of these fantastic research, like resources for getting this data, and you have to leverage it. Um, because if you guess, you're throwing spaghetti at the wall. And that is really expensive spaghetti to be throwing. And this isn't true just in cannabis. This is true everywhere. If you go and look at the Small Business Association, they tell everybody who's looking at starting a business to do market research, to do competitive analysis, because by doing this, you're validating demand and you're avoiding figuring it out the hard way. None of us have neither time nor money to have our own learning curve. Let's leverage other people's insights and through this data. And as we were talking about earlier, this is important because in any industry, but especially cannabis, you have to understand who you're selling to in order to make that connection with them. This is that brand research. You're going to hear a lot about it on this slide. It's surveys. And these are things you can do. You can do surveys, you can do tracking, you can do digital listening once your fantastic website is set up. But when you're first starting out, you can also just leverage the data that's out there. And if you do it right, you get brand awareness, you get loyalty, you get a really positive perception of your brand. And these are the fundamentals of the connection that you need. Um, at a certain point, people will tell you what they want, and they'll tell you sometimes with their words. And sometimes with their actions. Surveys are great, but they are limited. If you haven't watched The Spaghetti Sauce Talk by Malcolm Gladwell, I highly recommend it. People often don't know what they want. And so you have to rely on actions. And this is what a lot of the data brokers and the research gives you. When you understand your customer, when you've built that avatar, you know their pain points, you know how your solution solves them, you're able to communicate that in a way where they feel seen and understood. It's expensive to operate without data because you're going in there blind and you're going to knock over a lot of things. I know this sounds like something that is a small business problem, but it's not. Their big brands are investing. I mean, I believe it's Hugo Boss. I was reading an article the other day about how they're investing millions into data infrastructure. And this is so that they can access all this research and keep track of it all. You don't need to be spending millions of euros for this, but you should. This is something that you absolutely should be investing in. It will save you so much time and money. And we've all seen a lot of failed brands that thought they could just do it. I've unfortunately worked with some where the founder has been like, no, I came up with this idea. I know what is needed. And the market told them no. It's not worth it. If you invest into data and research, you get sorry, can we switch slides? I don't realize I don't have control because I'm pressing the button. It's not working.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No, I was
one
supposed
thing
to
I
do it.
wanted to say, one thing I wanted to say is like right now, like we're looking at like our revenue streams, and I think like 57 or 60% of the revenue we'll make in 2026 are fixing these mistakes that we're talking about, more so than helping people just get launched, which is pretty crazy to say.
Oh, and it's way more expensive to fix something that's wrong
Yeah.
than to start. And this is true no matter what you're doing, because it takes so much more time to untangle those knots. So when someone like John or me comes in and says, wow, that's going to be really expensive to fix, it's not because we're on the beach, it's because we're investing the hours into figuring out what is salvageable and what isn't, which you can avoid by leveraging data. And you can and should be leveraging AI. You can get better targeting, clearer messaging, stronger positioning. I'm sure you've all read the slide, so I'm not going to read it to you. Data is going to, as I said, tell you who to talk to, how to talk to them, and how to make it resonate for them. Don't use AI for that. AI is not good at it. It will fall flat. We've all started to ID the AI posts, the articles, the outreach messages on LinkedIn where somebody is having an AI chat with me, which is an immediate block, because we are out there for connection, all of us, you, me, our audiences. Don't leverage AI for that. Leverage it for the difficult stuff. Leverage it to help you wade through research, because the research is important. It gives you that competitive differentiation. It lets you make better and faster decisions and iterate more quickly. It gives you the ability to look at your brand long term, and see how things are changing. If you're running a test, we marketers love to tell you have to be constantly testing and iterating, because 101% improvements can change your business. I mean, 10 can change your business. So constantly be testing and improving. And one of the great things you can do with AI, and I know people are going to push back against me on this, but you have to know if this is your audience, and you'll get this from paying attention to them and somewhat from doing initial research. 80% of people want things to be personalized, and you can do that through segmentation, and you can do that through honestly leveraging AI. I love chatting with an AI bot online, because then I don't have to pick up the phone and call a real person. There's a lot of uses for AI that will make things easier and better for you. But the most important thing to do is iterate quickly and test, measure, and refine. So constantly be testing, constantly be measuring, and constantly be refining. Because if you don't, you're going to find out 6 months later or a year later that you wasted $1 million that you didn't have. Stealing John's story there. Not that he wasted $1 million. Sorry.
No, I was just complaining to Amna that we had a client who I spent like 2 months working on this custom tailored statement of work for their strategy over the next like 5 years. And they went with another agency and told me the strategy. I told them not to do it. They're going to waste their money. And yeah, they wasted $1 million this past year on
Yeah.
non-trackable marketing efforts.
You have to track. You have to track because that data is going to tell you what customers like and what they don't. And when you make it, when you give people more of what they want, they will give you more of their time and energy and loyalty and, really importantly, money. And AI is a great way to leverage, to move faster and have more relevant brand experiences. Nowadays, people are expecting it. They're expecting segmentation. They're expecting to only be pitched the things that are relevant to them. A lot of people are leveraging AI in their businesses now. It's actually absorbing in marketing. So I'm seeing sometimes they say 30, sometimes 50. That doesn't mean you go to ChatGPT and you have it write your blog posts. That doesn't mean that you have it write your social media posts. What it means is you leverage it in ways that free up the humans in your organization to implement the strategy, to look at the data, to make that connection with your audience. It's meant to be content support, not replacement. So instead of things taking you, 6 to 8 weeks, you can do it in a few days. I know that I'm using it. I cannot draw for the life of me, but AI can. And I will fully admit that I shamelessly get a lot of my, you know, Happy New Year, Happy Diwali graphics from AI. I know a lot of artists don't like that. As a writer, I don't love that AI is doing a lot of content, but it's because of quality. When you can leverage it, oh, we lost John. Um, because consumers are changing really fast. We talked about agility, and it's non-negotiable right now. You have to be able to move quickly because the laws are going to change. The rules around how you can market, especially in this industry, are going to change, and they can change overnight. So you have to be able to jump. You have to be planning ahead, and you have to be able to move when there's the first indication of something coming that's going to hurt your business or be an opportunity, and you're going to get that from data. Not being agile, not having the data means you're going to be making slower decisions, which is expensive. Speed has become a competitive advantage if you are agile. And most of us in this industry and most of us on this call are not running huge organizations. We're not at, Apple. We're not at one of the MSOs. I'm not going to call out any names. So we have the ability, and we should be leveraging it. Oh, sorry, there's that cough. Customer-centric decisions, they are going to require real data, not your gut. And because we can all move so quickly and we can produce so much through AI, there's no reason to not be able to grow faster and better.
Hey guys,
However, go ahead.
I wanted to jump in real quick and just give a 10-minute warning, but also we had a question that I wanted to make sure got floated in here as well, which was, as you're talking through this, what AI tools are you finding most useful in doing this stuff? Because I think the auto response normally is ChatGPT, but what is actually useful for you all?
The answer is it depends on what you're doing. Different tools are going to be better at different things. If you're doing health related stuff, Claude is better because it actually has more protections in place. It will remind you to do little things like if you are putting patient data in to anonymize it. Um, I am lazy, and so I use ChatGPT for a lot of my simple images, but their Midjourney and other tools are much better. It really depends on what you're doing. And then there's things like Open Evidence, which is an AI, but you can only access it if you're a doctor because it's going to comb through a lot of research for you. So if you're not sure, reach out to me, and or John, and we'd be happy to understand what you're trying to do and make a recommendation there. I'm sorry to
Yeah,
give a vague answer, but there isn't a straightforward one that one size fits all.
No, I think that's a good answer. You know, one example of a tool that we're finding work really well for retailers is actually the AI bud tender. Um, it There's certain ones that are better than others. Obviously, my favorite is one called Terply. It's just got acquired by Alpine IQ. Um, it not only gets the user to the product that's specifically solving the ailment or problem that they're trying to solve through cannabis, but it also automatically gets them to sign up for their loyalty program and segments that user based on their interest. So it's the path of least resistance to get someone to sign up because they're getting a problem solved, and then also segmenting them all in one sweep. So it's saving a lot of customer acquisition dollars and time on each user.
And one thing to be mindful of with AI tools when you're using them is the information you're feeding it. Check the constraints around it, what you've agreed to when you're using it. Be sure not to feed it anything proprietary to your business, especially the general ones like ChatGPT, because that does go into its training data. They say it doesn't, but I don't believe them. And it's not worth risking your business. So be mindful with that. But let me be mindful also of time. And I'm going to talk faster now to get through the slide. So one of the important things is making sure that you're standing out from all the AI content noise. AI is supposed to support your content, not replace your voice. Your brand voice, if you don't have one, you should. Please sort one out because you need this in order to be consistent in your communication to your audience, no matter where you are. EEAT still matters. This is experience, expertise, authority, and trust. AI can't deliver that. AI, it's using the same data. So if you're just using AI, your content is going to sound like everyone else's, no matter how unique you are. It's not going to be authentic to you. AI systems are still rewarding recognition. When we were talking about showing up in AI and being recommended, this is recognized brands when people are talking about you already, whether it's through PR or in social media, those signals. This is going to be important. It is a metric and visibility compounds. So once you get in there and you start to grow, it's going to be easier and easier. But authenticity matters more than ever now. How you show up reliably, consistently is going to matter. As John said earlier, authentic branding helps you stand out and helps you convert. Your audience still wants experts, not summaries. So make sure that when you're using AI, it's for drafting, but the human element is still there. So your insights plus smart tools. And the most important thing, and I mentioned this on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, it's not AI alone, it's AI plus your expertise. Content intelligence, which is data. So get your data, track your data, know what people want from you. This is showing you the demand. And then your insight creates the credibility. You have to combine them. You can't just use AI. And right now, you can't afford to just use the human side. You have to do both, but you have to do it intelligently. I'm going to let John read the slide because I need to cough.
Both coughing, too many blunts. Yeah, this slide just kind of closes out the presentation. Brands that last in cannabis aren't the trendiest. They're the ones that adapt, connect, and keep showing up. So be useful, be honest, and be ready. And yeah, if you're curious how brave your brand is or want to connect with Amna or I, this is our emails. We'll have Chris and Jill, share this presentation and our information, and we're really honored to have been here to talk to y'all.
John, I wanted to thank you for everybody on the call as well as from the GCNC. We always like being able to highlight members and their expertise and talk about the whole network reach. And so for those of you on the call who are already members, this kind of expertise and conversation is sort of what we encourage every day. And for those of you who aren't, it's our pleasure if you hadn't had a chance to meet John and Amna in the past to be able to introduce them to you all here. We will absolutely be following up with the presentation to everybody, so you'll be able to access that and ask questions. One thing, we have just 2 minutes left before we hit the top of the hour, you guys, and I wanted to ask a quick question that had been filtered over to me when you were talking about AI tools and finding the appropriate targets. Are you seeing a difference in how you use these tools in marketing to different age demographics? Is there a different approach, as we've seen sort of an older generation become a lot of the Canna Curious and accepting it? Are you approaching that targeting methodology different depending on those audiences, or is it kind of the same tools, just different words?
I would say right now, that's an interesting question. I would say right now, it's a lot of the same tools, but we're leveraging those tools to help us cater the communication to each demographic in a particular way. Um, like, even though, AI is a really hot topic right now and people use ChatGPT and, other searches, most of our clients' traffic is still coming from Google clicks, like still what's ranking on Google. And that tends to get lost in the AI noise right now, where people are like, how do I pop up on AI? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, like it's something to think about because it's the future. But what we're seeing in real time is that still people are primed to purchase on normal search engines, like mainly Google. So even with, I mentioned that AI bud tender tool, we see it like just an extraordinary amount of actually older demographic using that tool, which, I guess because in cannabis, like people who are just normal cannabis users, like know what they want. So they search it on Google, they click that direct link, they add that product to cart. Someone who's a newer user, which majority of them are going to be that senior demographic, use that AI bud tender tool to solve that problem that they're trying to solve, whether it's sleep or pain. And it's cool because a lot of them get segmented into a particular audience that we then can leverage through that communication.
Cool.
I use a lot of, like, again, like I come up with my own ideas and my own messaging and then use AI to help me refine them. And even with data, if you have a lot of data to work with that you're comfortable with sharing on something like an AI, you can use that data to consolidate what's actually happening in real time and help you draw conclusions that you can then present to your team.
Great. Amna,
Yeah,
any closing comments on that?
yes, the the older, it does depend on demographics. Younger people are using AI much more frequently. It's easier. It makes sense. Older demographics are not using it in the same way, but they have a knowledge gap. Some of them are comfortable with the bud tender, some of them are not. Some of them still want humans or to feel like they're communicating with a human. So AI is important. It is the future as people are aging up, because none of us are getting younger, unfortunately. Um, so it's not an or thing. Unfortunately, more and more things are going to become an and. You need to be doing SEO and AI. You need to be doing social media and advertising. You need to be doing all of these things consistently in the same voice so that as people move from one to the other, your brand is recognizable.
Great. Thank you so much for closing that out. And thanks again, John and Amna. For those of you who are looking to reach out for them, they're marketers, which means they're easy to find on LinkedIn, on their websites, and everywhere else. So thanks, everybody, for joining us for this GCNC webinar, Beyond the Logo. Have a great day.